Hello everybody and welcome back to Fintech Week London. My name is Tyler from the Fintech Times and I am very pleased to say that today I'm joined by Theo Lau. Theo, how are you?
Great, thank you so much for having me.
Are you enjoying the event?
Immensely. It's been very long, 3 years since we're back in full swing with in-person events. So it's lovely always to catch up with people.
Fantastic. Well, if you before we get on talking about everything that's happening with you, why don't you give our viewers a little sneak peek about who you are and where you come from today, please?
Sure. So I'm based in Washington, D.C. in the States, and I am the founder of a company called Unconventional Ventures. I also run a podcast called One Vision, where we interview founders and people that are making a difference and trying to use technology for good. In addition, myself and my partner, Bradley Lima, we just published a book called Beyond Good last year. So it's been a lot of fun.
Fantastic. Well, let's discuss a bit more about your book, Beyond Good. It's called Beyond Good, How Technology is Leading a Purpose-Driven Business Revolution. So why don't you give us a little bit of a taste about what the book's about and what you set out to really say in the book. What did you want the book to say?
So the book Beyond Good, we wrote that during the pandemic, and it's mostly about looking at different business models, different businesses, fintech startups, financial services, incumbent, as well as corporations outside of financial services, looking at how they can do good and while also taking care of the people in their ecosystems and also being able to make a profit. Oftentimes when we think about doing good, we think about philanthropy. And that is not really true because there are a lot of things that we can do. For example, looking at immigrants community, for example. A lot of times people think, well, we don't want to tend to the immigrant community because we can't make a profit out of it because they're not spending money. And the truth cannot be further than that. If you look at people who are unbanked and underbanked, they are actually spending a lot of money just trying to get access to financial services. So there are many, many instances where we can be more thoughtful and intentional about what we're doing. And that's what the book is about, is to provide examples for others and provide them with inspirations on how we can do better as an ecosystem.
Well, that's very interesting that you talk about the examples that you mentioned in the book. Why do you see fintech as an accelerator to making the world a better place?
I see them as being able to challenge incumbents to do something different, right? So if we look at, for example, what a lot of these fintechs are doing, they are reducing or sometimes eliminating different fees, overdraft fees, late fees, and what have you. And what we see, what the banks have started to do is they started to follow them. Same as, earned wage access. These are things that could have been easily done by a lot of incumbents, but yet they had not done it until after they see that, wait a minute, fintechs are doing it and we need to do the same just to, stay competitive. So I love that fintechs are challenging banks to think differently and to do differently. And there are different fintechs, for example, Aspiration, that's one in the US, that's looking at sustainability and trying to get consumers to be more mindful of where they're spending, where they put their money is. And I hope more banks and other fintechs will do the same.
You've hit on a really excellent note there that there are a lot of examples of fintechs doing good and making a real difference, and it's really encouraging to see, and there seems to be more cases even by the day. But unfortunately, doing good has almost become like a marketing term within the industry. Oh, I'm net zero, I'm eco-friendly, all this. How can the average consumer identify the brands that are actually all words and no action?
Greenwashing and pretending to do good. I think it's getting to be a bigger and bigger problem by the day because companies are catching on to say that, oh wait, this is a good thing that consumers want to hear regardless of whether or not you are truly doing it. I think actions speak louder than words. That's what I always say. So, they might be changing their logo to rainbow color for LGBTQ month, or all of a sudden finding their one single executive who is female to come out and speak about how important it is to have a diverse team on International Women's Day, right? So those are easy PR things to do, but look beyond what they're doing for those special months and special days of the year. Do they truly have a diverse executive team, or do they truly have businesses with companies that are trying to do good, right? Look up and down the supply chain. Or are they making most of their money from fossil fuel firms, right? So those are things that I think we need to pay more attention to beyond how they paint their logo in certain day of the year.
In terms of greenwashing, when we look at these companies that aren't doing good, I mean, what ultimately do you think should happen to them? What should be the end result for these companies?
So I think ESG is a very interesting topic. We see a lot of companies that are publishing their ESG reports or impact reports that are trying to show, what they are doing positive for the community. I think at the same time, though, what we're struggling with is what are we measuring and what are we comparing? Are we actually comparing apples to apples or apples to oranges? Because there are all kinds of metrics out there and all kinds of different standards. And until we can get to a point that we are actually comparing the same thing from company to company, it is truly hard for consumers to actually figure out, are they truly trying to do good or not? We see the same thing with fashion industry, for example. Companies that, are coming out and saying, well, we are trying to be sustainable in fast fashion. And then we also saw the backlash that happened. And so I think we still have ways to go when it comes to providing the true data for consumers to act.
Do you think that the backlash of not acting ethically is becoming more severe?
I do think that more and more consumers are voting with their wallets. I hope to see more. I think one of the challenge that we have is, going back to what you were asking about, how do we decipher from PR campaigns to true actions? And, what I would love to see is just like how we see a nutrition label for what contents you have in food. I would love to see that for what I'm spending or what companies are spending, right? If I'm going out to purchase certain something from a store, what is my carbon impact, right? What am I doing? And so you give me the information and the data for me to act in a way that I think would align with my values. I would love to see that.
And that's a future that we're all working towards here at Fintech Week London, and it's something that you really outlined very well in your book. Just moving a little bit further on from greenwashing and ESG onto other topics that really matter within fintech, especially is the rise of gender equality within the industry. And when we look at your own career, for example, we see that you have a very colourful career history. How would you describe your journey up to being where you are today? And additionally, do you think that you've hit the glass ceiling, or do you think there is a glass ceiling to hit?
I would more say a concrete ceiling, but colorful is an interesting word. I don't think I've ever heard anyone describe it as such, but it is certainly very colorful and full of twists and turns. I did not have a straightforward career path. I started in telecom. Actually, before that, I was in chemical engineering. So there has been many twists and turns. I think the common theme in there always has been using technology, right? Using technology for good or using technology to create better solutions for customers. So that's the one theme that has always been consistent with what I've done. With respect to glass ceilings or bamboo ceiling, since I'm Asian, I don't think I have quite smashed it. I would love to say that I might have made a small dent in it. What I would love is that if there are more of us, that we keep chipping it away, and hopefully one day we'll smash it. I think it will take a long time. It's not the action of one. It takes a village, and it changing culture and changing mindset is really hard.
So then what advice would you give to women who were thinking of entering the industry?
I would say the advice I would give to everybody, not just women, but also men, we can't do it by ourselves, is find a friend. I know it sounds really silly to say, but it makes the journey less lonely, and it helps to know that you're not alone. And to all the men and everyone who is watching, it takes all of us to change anything. And if I remember, I think the last World Economics Forum report say that it's going to take over 200-something years to actually get to parity. That's really depressing to think about, because that means that not only I will not see change, my daughter will not see change, nor her grandchildren will see the change. But, you know, I think it's not just an industry problem, and it's not just a women problem, it's the entire society. Because if you can activate everyone, right, you can actually increase the economic power of the entire society, so why not?
The economic benefits of gender equality you can't emphasize them enough. And it's very interesting, and as you said, it is a bit of a depressing topic as well. The way that you put it, in, you know, it's going to take generations and generations to resolve this, you know, an issue that's already so pressing as it is. It is really quite surprising. Moving on, I really wanted to gauge. We spoke about ESG and about greenwashing and about hopefully the rise of a more equal gender equality within the industry. But in terms of other emerging technologies, for example, and specifically artificial intelligence, now that has come a long way in the financial services industry. It's become almost, you know, the avant-garde, the must-have tool in solutions these days. How do you think that the industry has reacted to the rise in AI?
AI has been quite a buzzword for a few years now. We are seeing more and more companies adopting AI, moving it out from the lab into the real world, which is encouraging to see. I think a lot of the use cases we have seen thus far still focus mostly on improving efficiency, operational efficiency, right? So for example, in the last 2 years, we've seen more applications of AI in the call centers, making, you know, operations more efficient, easier, especially with the increase in volume and not enough agents answering calls. So we have also seen companies using AI more in credit decisioning, although I think that is an interesting space because it will surely attract the interest of regulators and trying to make sure they are doing the right thing for consumers. Are they being fair? Can they explain what they're doing? Is it transparent decision? So that is an interesting trend. What I would like to see more, though, is more focus on the use of AI on consumer well-being. We know that we are all facing enormous challenges, especially in the last 2 years, with increased inflation, with, you know, the economic impact from COVID for different demographics of people. And on top of it, and that's one thing we touched on in the book as well, people are living longer. We have lived an extra 30 years, 30 healthy living years since the beginning of 1900s. So if the way we're living has changed, the way we work has changed and is still changing with, you know, the rise of more flexible work, if you will, then my question would be, why is our relationship with money not changed? Why are we still talking about retirement in the 60s if that is probably not a feasible option for people? Why are we not thinking more of generational financial services if there are more generations living alongside each other? I always use myself as an example. So I'm 49 this year. My kids are young, still in primary school. My parents are in the 70s, living in a different country. So in 10 years' time, I will hit that golden age of 60 where people will be like, oh, well, you know, it's time to think about not working. The challenge of that is my parents will be well in the 80s, which is the time when we, you know, need to think clearly about financial caregiving. How do you support your parents when they're living abroad? And at the same time, my children will be getting into universities, which, for those of you who live in the US, you know tuition can be quite astronomical. And so I'll be facing the not twin, but 3 factors of big personal life decisions I need to think about. Who is going to be there to help me? Who is there to help me right now to think through my financial life in the next 10 years? The question is, I don't know, right? I don't know who will be there. So when we think about the use of AI, the applications of technology, where you can collate different data, where you can make predictions based on past history, and also based on trends, that is a perfect use case. We are used to getting into the car, trusting the navigation system to bring us from point A to point B, right? Why can't we have something like that for our financial life, a financial GPS, if you will, right?
Do you ever see AI, going to such a level that it generates a new evolution of the industry?
I think eventually it will and have to, because we just can't keep doing what we are doing with the way that we've been doing things when everything else around us change. The magic word, though, behind it is trust. Can you build enough trust with the people using your solution so they will actually use it? We trust the navigation system to bring us from one point to the other. Can banks or fintechs help us create that trusty relationship so we can get to where we need to be? I hope so.
I hope so too. Well, Theo, it's been absolutely fantastic to speak with you today. And Theo's book, Beyond Good, is out now, and it's all highly recommended. So thank you very much, and thank you very much, Theo, for talking with me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.